talk about it.
I don't mean it to start. I'll stop it.
Anybody on the line?
Nobody's been invited. I
We
don't
haven't,
think.
it's not on the agenda.
Cool. Okay, well, we will start this administrative review meeting. My name is Steve Burton. I'm filling in for Rick Grover, the planning director. He's asked me to step in for him on this meeting today, October 20th, 2021. It is just after 4 p.m. There's a few items on the agenda. The first is approval of the minutes from October 12th, 2021. And those have been reviewed and they have been found to be satisfactory. So we will go ahead and approve these minutes. The next item is going to be AAE 2021-07, review and possible approval of a request for an access exception to allow 2 future lots to be accessed using a private access easement at approximately 4820 West, 1600 South. Applicant Pat Burns and Scott is the presenter. Scott, what do you have for us?
Yep, so if you wouldn't mind, I'll just give you the rundown for both of these agenda items. The first was for the alternative access exemption. And then also the second item for the subdivision plat that would utilize that exception for its access if approved. So the subdivision is a 2-lot subdivision. And it is at 4820 West, 1600 South, a total area of 2.47 acres in the A1 zone. The applicant is looking to split that acreage in half along the beam of the parcel. Because of its narrow configuration, it doesn't make sense to split it down the frontage on the existing 1600 South. And so they are requesting an alternative access exception to allow a private easement or a private lane to provide access to the rearmost lot, with the argument being that it's not practical to extend a public street at this time, where there's also undeveloped land to the west that would benefit from a road being constructed in the future, but not this time. Staff did work with the applicant, requested that they utilize the connectivity incentivized subdivision language to dedicate a half-width right-of-way rather than just using an access easement to provide access to the rear lot. We would ask that they dedicate the half-width. They can use an improved travel surface that would handle 75,000 pounds of weight and meet the standards for a private lane and an alternative access, but that they would not have to install a fully dedicated road at this time, but they would be required to enter into a referral agreement for those half-width improvements when and if the other half of this road were to be dedicated by the adjoining property owner. With that connectivity incentive, there are flexible lot standards. So lot 1 exceeds the minimum area and width, or sorry, lot 2 exceeds the minimum area and width at 1.127 acres. Lot 1 is a little bit smaller than the traditional zoning minimum for the A1 zone, where it's 0.79 acres, so it's about 34,000 square feet. So it's about 6,000 square feet smaller than the zoning minimum. But the connectivity incentivized language allows for that area to be reduced by up to 50%. So based on that language and this connectivity that they're offering to dedicate, we believe those flexible standards are justified and meet those requirements. The subdivision is being serviced by Taylor West Weaver Water. Their preliminary approval letter indicates that they can use their water for secondary purposes, with the condition that they provide at least one share of either Hooper irrigation or Wilson irrigation to be transferred into the service district and held until pressurized secondary is made available in the area. So we are working through those conditions. Before we record, we'll require a final approval letter to verify that that process has been satisfied. Sanitary sewage is being provided by on-site wastewater disposal systems or septic systems. We have a feasibility letter from the health department. In the health department's review, however, they did ask for another test pit to be dug, which has since been done. So we have a test pit on both lots as proposed. And so as a condition of approval, they're one of the agencies that we need to be satisfied before we record. So we're waiting on the results of that test pit, but that should be to us shortly. We don't have any wellhead protection zone issues, and we have had agency reviews, and so far there are no major issues, just minor comments that will need to be resolved with each agency before recording. Staff recommends approval of both the alternative access exception and the subdivision based on the conditions in the staff report, which include the deferral agreement, on-site wastewater disposal system deed covenant, and a final approval letter from a water company. But we recommend approval based on those conditions and the findings in the staff report. Any questions on this one?
For an alternative access, a landowner is required to show that there's some circumstances on the property that make it not feasible to put in a road at this time. What was the
The
evidence?
argument?
Yeah, in this case.
So they're not arguing infeasibility. Obviously, it is feasible. They're arguing that it's not practical at this time to service a single lot rather than a fully dedicated road. Also, the configuration of the lot is quite narrow, where there's sufficient acreage to create two lots, but there's not enough width to configure them with both lots having frontage on 16 South. So the only way to subdivide this is to split it down the middle through the beam rather than through the length. So to provide access back to that rearmost lot, their argument is it's not practical at this time to dedicate and improve a fully improved road back to that second lot.
Makes sense. The other, I'm just looking at the area map on the staff report, I guess.
Mhm.
The parcel next to this, to the west.
Yep.
When they dedicate, do we know, do you see that strip of land? Do you know how wide that is? Just curious when they come through, if they develop and they dedicate, how
If
much of
there's
it,
enough width there.
well, or if it's gonna leave some kind of a weird strip of
Remainder.
land there, yeah.
That's a good question. Let me look here.
And that might not be a problem because they could just turn it into some kind of strip or something. But
Yeah. That parcel is 2.6 acres. It is already a part of a, well, now it's gonna meet some bounds description. And the surveyor's plat does not have a width.
okay.
The width at the end of the flag stem is 150. So,
Okay.
but the actual flag pole does not have a width called out on
Okay. At the end, okay, so the width of most of the lot is 150.
it. Yep. So the rear property line on it is 210. The width at the end of the flag pole is 150, and then the width of the flag pole itself, where it has frontage on 16th South, does not call out a width. If you look at the legal description, you're like. Yeah. It is not readily apparent what that width is.
Okay. And if I just had to guess, if I use the lot 1, which is what, 124 along that street, probably maybe slightly less than half of that, somewhere around
75.
yeah, so that would be 30, so it would leave I guess a strip of land, but maybe
It could be sold to that property owner further to the west.
yeah. It looks like with the configuration of the lots to the south, it probably makes more sense to have it shared, so, okay. Well, I don't see any applicant here or anyone from the public. So we won't have any public comment. But with that, Scott, in your presentation and answering those questions, I feel comfortable enough to approve the subdivision and alternative access as proposed based on the findings and conditions in the staff report. So that those items are approved. It doesn't look like we have any other items on the agenda, so we'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting.